Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IS Current Affair Analysis for 11th September 2020. These are the important articles that we'll be discussing today. The first article for the day is taken from the Hindu and it is titled The Great Graying of China. This article is about the one child policy of China and what are the implications of this policy on the present day. Now, let me give a brief context of this article. In 1970s, after the end of the First World War, China adopted a policy of cultural revolution led by Mao Zedong, the Communist Party leader. However, it was a huge failure because it led to the death of nearly 60 to 65 million people. This is because there were extreme famines and the kind of economic model adopted focuses on glorifying the Chinese civilization rather than actual economic reforms that empowered the lives of people. So in the 1970s, there was a significant increase in the amount of people or the population, and therefore the government wanted to control that population because of lack of resources. In this context, the government in 1979, in a desperate bid to reduce the population and curb the population growth, the communist authorities offered all kinds of incentives, like, say, for example, they offered couples the contraceptives, they awarded financial rewards, and all of this were done as a part of a policy called the one child policy. Now, what is this one child policy? According to this, if the couple abides by the rule of having only one child, then the government will give them certain incentives. So today, if you take a look at it, we can clearly say that this policy is a failure. Why? Let me explain. In the initial days when one child policy was announced, it failed. So forced abortions, fines were imposed, and they were used to enforce family planning on the population. Even in the 1950s, when China population was just below 600 million, birth control was seen as being beneficial to national prosperity. So a party official in 1956 publicly made this a announcement that they would be going towards birth control. In 1980s, the population of China topped 1 billion mark, that is 100 crores back in 1980s itself. So the country had already begun to enforce its controversial one child policy by then. While parents who adhered to the scheme were rewarded with a monthly financial bonus, those who did not were punished. Those with bigger families could lose state benefits. However, in a similarity that you can witness even in India, the policy was met with a resistance in rural China. In rural China, families wanted sons so they could maintain the tradition of passing on the family name, and also at the same time they wanted more manual labor who are physically strong. So there was a lot of criticism from outside China and occasionally from within China also. China still stuck to that controversial policy and ignored the plight of mothers having to resort to abortions or being forced to have their children adopted. In 2016, the government announced that they are moving away from one child policy. The reason why Chinese government took this decision right now is because they have a very skewed sex ratio. They have too many men, too many old people, and too few young people. They have this huge crushing demographic crisis as a result of this one child policy. And if people don't start having more children, they are going to have a vastly diminished workforce, and at the same time, they have a huge aging population which requires government support, and hence it will increase the cost of social support to be given to this aging population. This is the result. Right now, the ratio is about 5 working adults supporting one retiree. That's why they have ended a policy that should actually never been started in the first place. So one might ask this question: how far is it true to say that China lifted 600 million people out of poverty because of this one child policy? As a matter of fact, it is the Chinese people themselves who lifted themselves out of poverty. Certain economic measures did help, but it is the policies that economists identified as having been the most useful among other things that the Chinese government did, such as encouraging FDI or lifting barriers to private entrepreneurship, that actually lifted themselves. I mean, the people themselves lifted it because they were hardworking. The government has done hardly anything. Again, what also drove the economy forward was more people, but not less. China had this big population boom in the 60s and 70s, and they grew up to form a cheap labor force. Now, it is the timely intervention of the Chinese government to lift sanctions or restrictions imposed on the private sector. The timely intervention led the government to be able to use this cheap labor force. Also, there were allegations of human rights violations and labor law violations, but that is a matter of different discussion. But the reason why people were able to come out of the poverty is because they choose to work. It has got nothing to do with the one child policy. So this brings us to the assumption that reducing the population will actually increase economic growth. So if we take the example of Japan, which is also witnessing an aging population, this is far from true, because if a particular country has a significant amount of population at the age of 55 plus, we can say that the labor force participation rate will significantly come down. As a result, they are not in a position to harness their potential, so their total factor productivity will come down. So to say that the government policies actually favored the economic status of the country couldn't be more false in the case of China. If you take a look at the various governance indicators, whether it is the World Bank indicators or the corruption perception, all these indices have ranked China at an abysmally low position. Another thing that has propelled the growth in China is urbanization. If you take a look at the indicators of governance in urban centers, it is very good. Say, for example, if you are talking about education, 90% literacy rate was achieved in urban areas, whereas in rural areas, the rural children had only 24%. Considering the fact that nearly 40% of the population lives in rural China, what kind of governance are we looking at here with this economic growth? China has an economic growth greater than $10,000 per capita income. So that is quite high. Yet we have this skewed development model. So is this the kind of model that India wants to replicate through population control? Definitely not. So instead, we can only convince people to have lesser children, especially in states like Bihar, which is an outlier, because the fertility rate there is much higher than the national average, and it is around 3.2. So in certain states, communicating to the public the ill effects of having uncontrolled birth rate should be explained and communicated to the people. That is the only way in which we can control the population. In the southern states, the fertility rates have significantly come down, even less than the replacement levels of 2.1. So that should not be the focus in southern states, where we have already achieved that. So a one size fits all approach and using the example of China's one child policy should not be encouraged in the Indian context, because India will bear the brunt of this policy decision somewhere in the future, just like China and Japan. So what should be the kind of focus that the government should have with respect to its population management? The population should not be viewed as a burden, but it should be viewed as a demographic wealth. So this significant demographic wealth that we possess at this moment should be utilized to push India towards the self-reliant vision that we have right now. So for that, we have to invest in our governance indicators where China has failed significantly. We have to empower people and live up to our democratic credentials. That is the gist of this article. The second article for the day is titled The Global Technology Fracture and Our Regulatory Inadequacies. This is taken from the Mint. So the context of this article is very simple. If you're talking about global level regulatory structures or institutions like World Trade Organization, they are mostly designed to handle the kind of trade we witnessed in the post-war scenario. That is, we're talking about Industrial Revolution 3.0. Now, the world is entering towards Industrial Revolution 4.0, which is mainly driven by technologies like artificial intelligence, big data, and robotics. So, in the present context, we are witnessing a retreat of multilateralism and a backlash against globalization. In this backdrop, we have technologies like 5G, Internet of Things, and even devices like, say, for example, Amazon's Alexa, which have the capability to recognize your voice and respond back with the right kind of information. All these cyber physical systems are going to take over. We are moving towards smart cities, smart grids, and everything that is smart is associated with internet, and it is connected through certain devices. Now, this is a dangerous proposition, and it poses threats to national security as well as geopolitics. An example to this is the crackdown on Chinese firm Huawei by US. Huawei is considered to be the technology leader with respect to 5G and Internet of Things. Secondly, there are concerns about individual privacy. Now we have moved to an arena where cyberspace has become a sort of global commons, and privacy in issues that pertain to global commons is unheard of till now. So that brings us to the point where we have to create a regulatory structure that balances between privacy as well as regulating the cyberspace, because it is of primary importance to our economy. Third one is the influence of technology and the repercussions technology will have on individuals. So we are witnessing a scenario where companies with access to huge technology are creating a world where there is no scope for development for small companies, and the winner takes it all attitude of big companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, etc. has created an inequality of sorts. Now, how do we address this? That is the next concern. For all this, the answer is actually more globalization and creation of uniform rules across the world. We have to create a rules based world order. Instead, the entire world is reeling towards nationalism, and they are focusing on deglobalization. That will only accentuate the differences within the countries, and it will not lead to any kind of economic prosperity. The problem is not with the kind of growth, but it is with the model of redistribution among the countries and also within the countries. Only the top 10% of the population are creating the wealth because of the access they have to technology. It is the imperative of the government to ensure that inequality does not rise in a society and we move towards a world order that is created on rules. There is little evidence that, say for example, companies like Huawei engaged in spying on behalf of the Chinese government, but that does not mean that it will not do so in the future. Therefore, our regulatory structures should be ready to handle such accusations. We have to go by rules in order to avoid certain vested interests taking over the political institutions and democratic institutions which have so long safeguarded the rights of the people. That is the gist of this article.